Hold on.
It appears you are displaying something.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I can say beginning here. Yeah.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate your time on this broadcast this hour. We welcome every one of you, no matter the country you reside, no matter where you are.
I'm not going to see this slide.
Which is here and there.
Also get us on YouTube, and we have the leaders in the house that we are going to be having this conversation together. I'm going to open the studio so that we can see the great leaders that we have on this program this hour. So for those of you that you are connecting with us, please kindly share this program. Share it as many times as possible. That is the only thing that can make this program to go viral. Please keep sharing it. Keep sharing it, no matter where you are, no matter the country you reside. Keep sharing it. Let's do it together. I sincerely welcome every one of you, and I want to say to go viral. So keep sharing it. Let's talk about ourselves. Let's talk about our great continent. Let's talk about what we have, and let's talk about how we can develop ourselves. It's all about the great continent, Africa. It's about what we have. It's about what we can do within ourselves. So please kindly join us. Be part of this conversation this hour. And I will appreciate if you want to call us. We will definitely give you the number to call on this program as the program going on. But right now, let me quickly open the studio for us to give our leaders opportunity to introduce themselves to the house so that we can be able to know who is behind the camera. We have the PowerPoint presentation as well. Professor Joe, we open the floor and give us the idea of what is coming on this program this hour. Professor Joe, I really appreciate you for your time on this conversation this afternoon. You are not new to this house. Thank you for the love and thank you for believing in us. Thank you for being here. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, I would like you to do an introduction to introduce our speakers, especially Professor Larry, all the way from Nigeria. And also we have Yusuf also that will be connecting with us. And also we have, I think, I don't know, maybe he's a professor or Dr. Subisiso also is here. And also we have somebody with name Ademola also is in the house. So, but for those of you that you want to connect, please, you can go to our Facebook, you can watch it live there, and also you can watch it on our YouTube. So let me give Professor Joe opportunity to introduce this program and the guest.
Thank you very much. the director of our conversation today, Olusegun of African Portal Radio TV. It's a pleasure being on your platform once again to disseminate information about what we are really concerned about, what's of interest to us, our African heritage. This and our Heritage Month. And then we have in the studio Professor Olanrewaju Moody is a professor of pharmacognosis, retired just barely 2 weeks ago. And I was privileged to be at his valedictory lecture, where he expressed his vision and commitment to advancing, promoting, and preserving African indigenous medicine, medicinal plants, and all our linguistic and cultural nuances associated with it. He's been a professor of pharmacognosy, retired at the University of Ibadan. He's been the job for over 40 years before he came in, but he's retired but not tired. So he has done a lot of work in the area of pharmacognosy, which is where we advance the science of herbal medicine, medicinal plants, and so on and so forth like that. So we will be hearing a lot from the scientific point of view of our subject matter today, advancing, promoting, and preserving our African indigenous knowledge and languages, with particular focus on our medicinal plants, African medicine heritage that we have there. We have Dr. Yusuf, who is a practitioner in African herbal medicine. You hear from him from practical point of view that what we are saying is not just theoretical, it's real, impacting lives in different ways. I won't preempt what he wants to say. Is there to speak to us there. Then my friend, colleague, Jeffrey Sibosiso, is a colleague from Durban University of Technology, who is into African languages, committed also to advancing, promoting, and preserving our ethno-linguistics heritage, our language and culture, which are embedded together. Well, and I'm Professor Ojo, as you have mentioned. Appearing here with a cap of the Executive Director of Africa Indigenous Language Technology Institute. I'm an adjunct professor at the Durban University of Technology. I retired some time ago, but I'm not tired. Still advancing the knowledge, that we live to do as long as God give us the grace to do there. That's in form of introduction of our guests. Over to you, the master of ceremony. I think bear with us with the little glitches and itches with regards to, and it's coming up. The anchor is coming up. Yeah. It takes a lot of bandwidth, having program live like this.
Okay, we managed to get Professor Dr. Yusuf is what we are trying to work on. So we managed to get him on board as well. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Yusuf. Thank you. Yes, you are live now. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, and we have somebody watching us from Jamaica, and is part of the Great African Portal. Mariboma, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. All right, let's get to the business of the day. Let's keep the ball rolling and let's start this program fully. I really appreciate every one of you connecting to this broadcast this hour. I have the great leaders in the house, and also I have other people connecting with us from all over Africa. And that will give us opportunity to be using English as a medium of communication, because we have other people that is connected to this broadcast from the other part of Africa. All right. Thank you so much, Professor Ojo, for that brief introduction. Thank you so much. All the speakers have 10 minutes to introduce their points and to also introduce their discussion. So from there, we will take it up from the studio and we start, throwing questions and allow people as well connecting with us outside here to be part of this conversation. So I will start with Professor Olanrewaju Jones Moody. Prof, I really appreciate you, sir. Thank you for the great work you are doing in this continent of Africa. And thank you for believing in the cause. We really appreciate you. A lot have been said about you, and we really appreciate you accepting our invitation to be on this broadcast. Let me allow you to to introduce yourself to the house, and also to open the floor. Give us your 10 minutes introduction, then we take it from there.
Okay, thank you very much, moderator. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Jones Olanrewaju Moody, retired professor of pharmacognosy from the University of Ibadan. I have been in this university system for 40 years, just like Professor Joseph mentioned. And it's been a pleasure working with medicinal plants, working with herbal medicine all over Africa, and of course, outside this country also. I trained in the University of Ife for my undergraduate programs and at King's College London for my PhD. It's a pleasure to have also mentored and tutored in the university system for more than 40 years. So it's a pleasure to be here. I was thinking that Professor Joe would be the one to start, but if you want to start, I can go on.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Let me start to give you can
start that Professor Ojo is actually the co-moderator of the program. So
okay. So I will in my own view, I will just start with the basic things about traditional medicine. How is it defined, and also what is the scientific backing that is important, which we need to know, and how it is also important to us as Africans. The herbal medicine heritage, the indigenous knowledge heritage, the ancient wisdom, which is of so much importance, not just in our culture, but cultures all over the world. And I will just start with a definition of traditional medicine. You know, it's not a hidden thing. WHO has a definition, which is very, very important. And it says that traditional medicine is the knowledge, skills, and practices based on the theories, beliefs, and experiences indigenous to different cultures, used over time in the maintenance of health and in the prevention, diagnosis, improvement of treatment of physical and mental illness. So it of course, it depends on ancient wisdom, passed from generation to generation, and it has actually contributed to filling access gap in healthcare coverage of several countries. It is not to be looked at as an isolated thing. It must be integrated into health systems, and that is what we are really now trying to do in many cultures. WHO believes that it can be integrated, so that it's not something that is actually working in parallel, as it has been done very successfully in several countries like China, in India, and even Ghana, next door to us here in Nigeria. I have always mentioned that it's not something that is foreign. I have a very simple experience as a young child when I was born by a hurricane lamp, and my grandfather was coming when I was crying, and he was chewing something, and what he was chewing I only knew when I got to pharmacy school. What he was chewing was Atare Yoruba, which is Aframomo Meleguata, and he spat on me on my stomach, and within 4 days all those bones were actually dried up and healed up. So, and of course, we now know that Aromoma melanogaster is a very important antimicrobial, not just for wound healing, for even preservation of many things. There are important statistics that I like to draw. More than 80% of global population depends on traditional medicines. 40 to 50% of people globally, of globally approved pharmaceutical products are derived from or inspired by natural products. So what you see in tablets form today, in many pharmacies, in hospitals, many of them, 50% are derived from medicinal plants, from natural products. Global herbal medicine market is over $150 billion in 2021 and is projected to reach $347 billion by 2029. Africa has over 45,000 plant species, out of which 5,000 are used in traditional medicine. WHO lists over 21,000 plant species used around the world for medicinal purposes. And the medicinal plants form an important part of African wildlife and its economies. Now, in Nigeria alone, there are over 10,000 plant species, out of which less than 20% have been utilized. So we have, in our country, for example, and this is applicable to many other countries in Africa, sometimes even less than 10% of these plants are utilized. Now, what are some advantages of traditional medicine? Well, I just list few of them. One is accessibility. It's accessible to people. Cultural acceptability, is culturally relevant to us. It is also affordable, and it contributes to healthcare manpower. For example, all our traditional birth attendants, bone setters, people can set bones. Just like, when somebody break a bone, they will also break a chicken leg, and they will set the bones. So it contributes to healthcare manpower. Then it's also administered in dilute concentrations, therefore usually less toxic. It's also a source of modern drugs, and I will actually speak a little bit more about that. For example, all the things that like aspirin that we talk about today, artemisinin, Coartem, which we use for anti-malaria, they come from traditional medicine. Some disadvantages, of course, we have some poor diagnosis. Occultism sometimes associated with that. Some people don't want to talk about it. Also, there's a lack of documentation, and there's lack of reproducibility. Sometimes something that you do today is not possible again next month. So those are some disadvantages, and this is due to lack of standardization, which also is very important for us to address. Now, it fills gap. Traditional medicine fills access gap in treatment in African countries. For example, the access to medical doctors in, say, Swaziland is just about 1 to 10,000, whereas they can access traditional medical practitioners 1 to 110. So to 110. So you have that there's a lot of accessibility access that traditional medicine provides when you compare to allopathic medicine. Now, what are some examples of traditional medicines as source of modern drugs? I've mentioned artemisinin. This is a very big story, in China, where one professor was actually sort of commissioned to look into their material medical to see how they can get anti-malarials for their military men during the Vietnam War. From literature, they found Artemisia annua, and they have to go back to see how it is used before they can actually come up with artemisinin, which today forms a very important drug for use in many countries in treatment of malaria. We are all familiar with Olanrewaju, which we play with as children. From there, of course, this is a source of anti-cancer drug, which is vincristine, vinblastine, which are all in pharmacies today. They come from basic use, Catanatus roseus, Olanrewaju, which is very familiar to most of us in Africa. As children, we play with it with flowers. Then, of course, in Yoruba, we have a plant known as Akerejukmo, which is Sphenocentrum julianum, and we have shown that these are used medicinally for treatment of cough, for treatment of constipation, body pains, rheumatism, and as an aphrodisiac. And today we found constituents from them, which our team have shown to be very anti-inflammatory, with constituents such as colombine and things isolated from them. And so these are just examples of plants that are used in traditional medicine, which of course have been sources of modern drugs that we use even in pharmacies and in pharmaceutical pharmacy world. Now, what is the African share of the global herbal medicine economy? This is very poor. The African share is so poor because we have not developed as we should. We have not used our things as we should. In India, for example, by 2021, their share is about $539 million US dollars. China has about $18.8 billion US dollars, while Nigeria has just about $0.50 million US dollars. Even Ghana is a bit better, 7.80 million. So we are so poor in terms of African share of the global herbal medicine economy. The global market as of this year, as of last year, is about 165.7 billion, and you can imagine Nigeria just having 0.5 million US dollars out of this. What are the challenges of herbal promotion in and sustainability? Number one is lack of inclusion of rural communities. And number two, insufficient monographs of medicinal plants. We don't have standards as we should. And this is what is being addressed by people, bodies like African Regional Standard Organization, West African Health Organization. So we are at least making an effort to get these monographs in place. Lack of social acceptance in society, lack of appropriate national policy and regulations. I'm happy to note that South Africa maybe has some regulations, but in Nigeria, we are still a bit far behind in getting appropriate national policy. China and Ghana are good examples where national policies have included herbal medicine in national health system. For example, if you go to Kumasi General Hospital, you will see a section for traditional medicine or herbal medicines and also the allopathic medicine alongside. So there's a problem also of seasonal availability of medicinal plant supply and limited logistics. This is one of the very important areas where research has to be made, because we know plants. What you get in plants in January is not what you get in plants maybe when it is raining in September. So these are issues which are actually challenges. How do we then address these issues? There must be need for conservation. How must it be sustained, particularly medicinal plant resources? We must provide incentives for local communities to protect and manage natural resources. We must promote the cultivation, domestication, and diversification of plant species. We must also enhance awareness and appreciation of cultural and ecological importance of plants, like this radio program is doing. I think it's very important. We must also promote social acceptance of these medicinal plant resources, like is done in Brazil, for example. Very well done. They have what you call living pharmacies, where people can go into communities, develop their plants, and make use of those plants in the health management of their problems within the community. So we must also promote socio-economic equalities by ensuring local people benefit from herbal medicine supply chain. For example, intellectual property must be put in place. Conclusions, because of time, we must incorporate herbal medicine into healthcare systems, because this offers a critical complementary option to synthetic drugs, reducing strain of on healthcare budgets and enhancing public health resilience. We must also tap into the potential of herbal medicine. Societies can unlock a harmonious cycle of well-being and prosperity, nurturing both human health and economic development. We must also promote the cultivation and conservation of medicinal plants, which will safeguard biodiversity and protect delicate ecosystems. This is very, very important, because it's not just important to say that we use this herbal medicine. We must promote the conservation, must promote the cultivation. These are sustainable practices that are very important. We must have things like organic farming and also ethical wild harvesting, because right now people just harvest these plants anyhow and they kill the plants, and we are actually in danger of most of these plants disappearing within the next few years. So these are some of my thoughts, and I think we can discuss it. We can discuss around it. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very, very much, sir. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Yusram. I see that the network is kind of very bad on your side, but we believe that it's going to be okay. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the pleasure of your time. We really appreciate it. And also, Prof, thank you so much for that presentation. We really really appreciate it. And for those of you that are connected with us all over the world, thank you very, very much, especially in Jamaica. We have a lot of people connecting with us and it's gaining momentum. But before I go to Dr. Yusuf, let me quickly engage. I'm not sure if I should use doctor or if I should use Prof, but I can see Sibususo. I'm not sure of the title, but let me quickly put him on the spotlight. Let's hear his contribution to what Professor Moody just mentioned now. Let's hear from him and see what he have for us on this program before we go to Dr. Yusuf. So if you are there and you can hear me, I just want you to unmute yourself and kindly introduce yourself to the house.
Thank you, moderator. I hope you can hear me.
You are on mute, sir. Can you please unmute yourself? You are mute. Can you please unmute yourself?
I have already unmuted myself.
I'm not sure if Dr. or Prof. Sibusiso is there. If you are there, please let us know so that we can continue. We want to make sure that we put all our guests into the spotlight. If you are there, please let us know. Okay, in the absence of that, let me quickly allow Dr. Yusuf to give us his presentation. Then we go into the conversation. Dr. Yusuf, if you are there, please kindly introduce yourself to the listeners at home and let them know who you are, where you are, and the position you hold in our society, if you are there. Dr. Yusuf? All right. Let me just quickly pick up from Professor Ojo. Since Dr. Yusuf, are you there now? Okay, let me bring Professor Ojo in. Let us talk about the presentation that we received from Professor Moody. Let's quickly have conversation about that, and let's throw that out to the audience. Let's do justice to read. And what are the things that we are expecting? What are the progress? What are the things that we need to put in place for Africa to gain its right position among the nations of the world? According to Professor Moody, they said that Ghana is doing it and is working for them. So that means Africa is not left behind. We just need more African country to do more for themselves. Professor Ojo, please, sir, if you are there, sir, I want to leave the floor to you to quickly help us throw some light, and if there's any question about the presentation from Professor Larry Moody.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether you are hearing us. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir. We are hearing you clearly, sir.
Okay, because Sibuiso was speaking the other time, I could hear him. Apparently, you were not hearing him.
But I can hear you, sir. His phone his line is on mute.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you very much. I think it's great. Professor Larry Moody has, they put in a nutshell the focus of our engagement today. While we talk about indigenous knowledge generally, we are homing on our earth-related indigenous knowledge, our indigenous healthcare systems. I just want to highlight a few things that could connect with the issue of our language and culture with regards to the indigenous knowledge. Now, when we look at our African indigenous knowledge, this is experiential knowledge based on African worldview and culture that's basically interrelated. And our worldview, which includes our wholeness, our community, our harmony, they are deeply embedded in our cultural values. Now, due to decades of colonialism, cultural imperialism, and the power of multinational pharmaceutical industry, traditional healers and traditional medicines have been marginalized and their value to communities underplayed. You can see how you see us jettisoning African medication in preference for what you call Western medicine. And in some cases, as I'm hoping we are going to have Dr. Ruslan to come on board, will tell us the efficacy of our African herbal medicines. Sometimes there's a complaint that it is fetish, it is bitter, it's unhygienic, thereabout. Professor Lanre mentioned about the need to standardize, the need, what I call the need to scientify, our indigenous knowledge in this area. And I believe that's the way by which you can lift up to a level our indigenous knowledge of herbal medicine, Africa or traditional medicine, so that it gains global visibility, so that it's looked at not as something to be derided, but something to be advanced, to be promoted and preserved. Now, our culture and our language, they are anthropologically intertwined. And we could see that our African language and culture, represent windows to our souls, to our unique indigenous knowledge, as has been expanded by Professor Larry Moody. Our cultural identity, is reservoirs of our stored most of our cultural wealth, our philosophies, as he mentioned, wisdom, and then lyrical and poetic songs, and indigenous medicine practices, and so on and so forth there. And we can see there's a utility when we promote our advanced days. Our African language and culture will help us to understand, organize, and transmit our indigenous knowledge embedded in our cultures, such as our herbal medicine, traditional medicine, to successive generations, as you have it there. If we don't preserve it, the next generation, as Professor Moody mentioned, will just be without knowledge of this that we are enjoying today. Now, our African language and culture, they serve as a roadmap to comprehending how social, political, and economic institutions and processes are developed, including our healthcare institutions. As he said, we need integrative approach to healthcare system where our herbal or African medicine is not treated as an adjunct, but rather integral to our healthcare systems. Now, having said that, we both realize that in this age of globalization, this precious indigenous knowledge, not only area in the herbal medicine, African medicine, is endangered. The rate at which cultures and languages are vanishing, is quite alarming. It's reported that of the over 7,000 plus all spoken languages of the world, 50% are in danger of disappearing. Already, of the 237 disappeared world languages, 37 are from sub-Saharan Africa. I'm emphasizing this point because we cannot take away our cultural heritage from our language, because our language is the vehicle by which we convey this. Our culture, our languages is endangered. Most of African languages, fear people are claiming ownership of these languages. Their diminished utility of this thing being used by fear and fear activities. Non-inclusive official language policy. You hear in the African system, they say there's what they call official language policy. In South Africa, for example, we have 9 languages as declared official out of over 40 languages of South Africa. In Nigeria, maybe they'll say Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, and then English. What happened to over 500 other languages? And language and culture, they go together. As language disappear, the culture disappear. including our herbal medicine and the cultural way that is there. So there's the mental slavery of a global language and culture being superior, prestigious, compared to our own. When you speak English, I remember in those days, you don't speak English in school, you're in trouble, you are punished. You say, don't speak vernacular. Our languages, our show of culture are considered as vernacular, which really is rather unfortunate that we are devaluing what we have, preferring all the alien culture, that we imbibe due to colonialism. When we look at the death of anything about our language and culture, it can be likened to a burnt library of cultural heritage, the embodiment of our people. It lost the socio-psychological effect, losing our cultural identity, harboring of socio-cultural inferiority complex. When we lose our own, we have to be struggling to imbibe the other. This is accompanied with second-class citizenship, syndrome, living with second fiddle playing mentality. When you can't speak English well, people can just dismiss you. But when you are speaking your language very well, you are demonstrating your culture, they say this one is primitive or standard there. It's very, very important. I want to wind up by looking from the point of view of the technology. Our language and culture, including our medicine knowledge, is lacking in digital feasibility. And in this information age, UNESCO has predicted any language or cultural material that is not on the internet will, just a matter of time, could disappear. So we suffer as African, with regards to our language and culture, we suffer digital language and cultural exclusion, digital information inequality, where we present ourselves more as consumers of information rather than producers of information, not making adequate contribution to the global reservoir of knowledge that we have. Rather, we just take knowledge of others, hook, line, and sinker, because we have diminished our own. So we are more, as Africans, foreign knowledge consumers rather than original knowledge producers. We can leverage information and communication technology, to preserve, to advance, to promote our our heritage. They call the Abia medicine or African medicine as we have there. Now, so we have this unique challenge of adapting to the fast-changing technological environment. People talk of fourth industrial revolution nowadays, where everything is interconnected, being controlled by artificial intelligence. We need to latch onto this by bringing our language there. Now, our languages, our cultural materials have diminished on the internet because we're not advancing, we're not promoting. We don't have the vision of preserving them. So it's important that we take advantage of what the information community technology offers. What am I saying? I think it's important that we set a vision that none of our cultural, linguistic heritage should die. We should set a mission to develop a comprehensive, deliberate, sustained strategy to preserve and promote our African language and culture, including our urban medicine knowledge, advance our African language and culture, digital feasibility in the global knowledge space. It must exploit hidden wealth of our African languages. We need to take responsibility for providing African solution to this African problem, taking advantage of what's available to us, both human and technological. Lastly, I want to quote late President Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. You know, he foresaw before, you know, he passed on. He said, we shall, as Africans, accumulate machinery and establish steelworks, iron foundries, and factories, link the various states of our continent with communications, astone the world with our hydroelectric power, drain marshes and swamps, clear infested areas, feed the undernourished, and rid our people of parasites and diseases and poverty in general. It is well as within the possibility of science and technology as it is today to make even our Sahara bloom into a vast field with verdant vegetation for agricultural and industrial development. We need to exploit our rich linguistic and cultural heritage in pursuit of this vision of our forefather Kwame Nkrumah. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Professor Ojo. Thank you for that powerful presentation. And I think we are gaining momentum. People are connecting. Anna, thank you very much. Even though your light is coming in and going, to everyone listening to us, thank you very much. We are trying to help Dr. Yusram to connect because he's having challenges with his network, and that is why you see I'm switching off, I'm switching in. I have to see how I can be able to get him on this conversation because he also have a presentation. But Professor Moody, thank you very, very much. I have a very great question for you. This is a conversation now. I'm trying to connect with Sibusiso, but sir, I can hear you, but your line keep on going on mute. So if you can unmute yourself, I would like to hear your view on this conversation as well, sir. Please, I would like to hear your view. And also, Ademola also, I would like to hear your view. I'm going to put you on the spotlight. So please, Mr. Sibusiso, please kindly unmute yourself. Your line still on mute. So please kindly unmute yourself. You are mute if you are there. Thank you very much. Professor Moody, let's quickly get to the business of the day. You are one of the leaders that you've been in this field and you understand what it is. But there is something that is going on, especially in Nigeria now, that NAFDAC is giving most of the herbal medicine NAFDAC number for them to produce, but they don't allow them to sell their products in the hospital or in pharmacological settings, maybe in the pharmacies, in the shops and stuff like that. Is that truth, or is it just a kind of a sentiment? What is your thought and what is your think about
it? Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Well, what is happening for most of the herbal products, there are stages. First, NAFDAC, all they do first and foremost is when you apply, they list they have what you call the list. They first of all list the products, and that
Bit of technical issue there with him.
listing is what many people in Nigeria will just take as that they have given them number.
Okay. Continue, sir.
With the internet connectivity.
Yeah, I think it's the network issue. Thank you very much, everyone. We cannot run away from that. Anna is connecting back. Let me just quickly hear from him why I'm still waiting to connect with Mr. Sibusiso. Let me remove Mr. Sibusiso out of the platform. Then I can give another person opportunity to come into the program. And I have Anna connecting with us as well. I know he has something he wants to say. Let me just quickly give him this opportunity to come in and tell us what his view is on this conversation. And thank you very much for every one of you that you are connecting. We really appreciate your time on this broadcast this hour. Thank you for the pleasure of your time. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we have a lot of people coming into the studio as well that I believe that they also have something to contribute to this discussion this hour. So if you are there, please kindly switch off your camera, switch on your camera and your microphone. Let us hear you, and we can be able to, you can go ahead, sir. You are live now.
Yes, please. Actually, this is Ademola, but you may see it as Anna because it's my wife.
Go ahead, we can hear Ademola, you, sir.
Live. So, yes, a professor of oral and maxillofacial surgery.
You are live, sir. You can go ahead. We can hear you.
All right. Yeah. The comment I want to make actually borders on question. The presentation by the second speaker, actually, we were not able to follow appropriately. But with the Professor Moody, I want to ask him, if he's very competent with social media, there are a lot of ABBA medication, ABBA advices going online. And because of the situation of our people now, a lot of people would rather want to go for those ABBA advices. But unfortunately, they are not standardized. Is there a way that we'll be able to do something so that people can benefit immensely from this? I know that professor is a professor of pharmacognosy, that's in the university, but now we are actually talking of practicality. How do people benefit from our natural resources and they are not armed? Thank you very much. This is Ademola Lighton. Thank you.
Can I go on?
Yes.
Can I speak?
Yes, Prof, you can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. And I was just going to answer the moderator's question, then I will come to this Dr. Ademola's, Professor Ademola's question. Well, what I was trying to say before I was cut off by the network was that NAFDAC gives sort of just list products that comes to them. That is, once they have assured themselves that they are safe and they are not going to be toxic to people by just evaluation, which is simple toxicity evaluation, then they can list those products. That listing doesn't confer efficacy, doesn't confer anything more than that it is not toxic. And so, but people just go from there and say, yes, now that have given them a number. That's not sufficient for those products to be sold in pharmacies. Before a product can come to pharmacy, there must be at least thorough investigation, thorough examination, thorough evaluation, so that in terms of efficacy, in terms of potency, and not just safety. So all these things are important: the purity, the safety, the efficacy. This must be all covered, and also even long-term use. So those are things that takes time before it can actually officially be accepted into pharmacies to be sold and used alongside with other conventional medicines. So that's where people get it wrong. But when it is listed, of course, people can be used because they believe it is safe, it is not toxic. But must also go a step further so that there can be scientific proof for the use and the claims by which they are used before they can come into pharmacy. I hope that we answer that question of why you have a lot of listed products, but which are not allowed, in conventional pharmacies. Secondly, the question that was asked.
Sorry, sir. Before you continue the second question, let's quickly deal with the first question, sir. So, right, is there any way that NAFDAC will be able to do a kind of putting it out to let the people because a lot of people complain that no, NAFDAC give us the NAFDAC number, but our product is not allowed to be sold to the public. Is there a way they can do a kind of publication to let the owner of the product know which one is going out and the reason why it's not going out?
They know because I mean, those it's just that many people claim ignorance. They know because by the all what they are given is just listed by NAFTA, and that listing is the first stage, first step, and it is actually part and parcel of policies to encourage development and promotion of urban medicine. That we do not just want to ignore it, but must also be listed, and then further work can then be done. Scientific inquiries, scientific investigation, and people don't want to spend money to do that. Many people don't want to spend money to do it because there's no way before a drug comes to pharmacy, billions must have gone into millions must have gone into it. Now that I mean, and that it is only then that we can have scientific proof that this is sufficient at least to be used in this. I mean, anyhow in the pharmacies and hospitals. But as it is, of course, when it is listed, that means it's also allowed. At least to be sold, is allowed to be consumed because NAFDAC has certified that it is not going to be toxic or give adverse effect to people based on at least that preliminary information that they have on those products. But that is just the first stage, and it's not sufficient for it to be say that they have to be sold in pharmacies. So but alternatively, what people do, especially in US, because as we know, these botanicals have, they're just like food. So what the way out, particularly in other countries, is that they are not listed as drugs, but they are listed as nutraceuticals, like foods. Just like you can pick up ginger powder now and use it the way you want, but you cannot begin to claim on the label. But this is what it's going to do. And that's what our people want to just do when something is listed. They want it to be sold to say, yeah, it is used for diabetes or something. You cannot do that until there's sufficient proof. But it can be used as food. I mean, our products, if you list it, if you disclose what it is, and NAFDAC is satisfied that it's safe, then it can also be sold just like nutraceuticals, but not as drugs, as it were. Okay, so there's a little difference there, and that is what the way out, at least in US, where you have many of the products, botanicals, medicinal plants that are sold as nutraceuticals. That is just like functional foods. Okay, so and that may be some way out, but you cannot now claim on the labels that it is used for this type of disease or this type of disease. But it is, maybe satisfied that at least it has certified that it is safe and can be used as nutraceuticals. I think that may answer your question. If
yes, that answered the question. I would like to go to the second question, but sir, let's quickly look at it. So, being registered or being put on the list of NAFDAC, that is the first step. That doesn't mean that your product have been approved. That is the first step.
No, it's just listed. It's just listed, and so you have to go further for it to be. If you want to say you are claiming that something is now used for diabetes, used for malaria, you have to go further. There must be further investigations and so on, scientific data, right, so that it can then finally be approved. And many people don't want to go to do that. For example, I give an example. For example, this Niprisan, which NIPRID worked on. Niprisan is used for sickle cell. It has to go for many other tests after the first listing. But now it is being produced by May and Baker, and it can be produced by any other company because it's not be approved by NAFDAC, and it can be sold in any pharmacy. But that it takes all those steps, because drugs are not just like they are not just like things things you just pick up in the market, because they can also damage health. Some things maybe you think they are useful, they can also they can do further damage to health than even being useful. So that is why that caution is very, very important. Is very needed. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. I will keep the rest of the question. Now let's continue with the second question, sir.
Now the second question is very germane. And very this digital age, which was Ojo has mentioned. You see, everybody in the world have access to this social media, whether they are crooks, whether they are genuine, whether they are, whether they know anything about what they are saying, they have access. And that is why it is always also very dangerous. And many people are just there to make money and to deceive people. And that is why it is so important that things are properly scrutinized. You know, I've found, many people have called me. I've seen so many examples of people who have been conned by this social media. People claiming that something will do something. They will, you know, and whereas it is all fake. You know, some will also have products which, of course, maybe they have added, you know, ampicillin into it, and they say it's herbal, and they'll be claiming many things. So social media allows anything to happen. That's why there must be credibility. That's why there must be, you know, people must not just be taken in by anything they say on social media. There must be scientific investigation into any of these things. You must consult appropriate professionals on anything so that actually you can be guided. Because many people claim many things. There are, in fact, people who will claim some plant material. We do this, we do that. They will not tell you the type, because these plants, as you see them, some of them, they are useful. They just like any drug, at a particular dose, they'll be useful. At another dose or a combination with another thing, like Professor Joe, we also know, the interactions may happen and it may cause more damage. And at a different dose, it can even cause something else. So some of them are poisonous. A lot of people have died unnecessarily because they just see something on the internet. They don't know the dosage. They don't know how it is. And they use them. And as I've mentioned also, plants it's not just like any other thing. It's not just like Panadol you synthesize that is synthesized. What a plant you use in January, you know, maybe just take 5 grams of it and use it in January. If you take the same amount of material in November, they may not give the same effect. May even be toxic, because they produce the seasonal variation upon which they produce the chemicals that actually constitute our drugs. And also, depending on where it is grown, whether it is in southern Nigeria or northern Nigeria, there's also geographical variation. So there must be enough evidence, enough information, and these are all areas of standardization that is very important, which is still a work in progress. But as it is important that people also seek professional advice, at least on these plans, where you see, not just take hook and sinker, line and sinker, anything that is seen on the internet. And that's why we also agree with Professor Joe. You know, the time, it is important that those who know also occupy space in the digital world. If it is not so, you find more fake things coming in, because they are there, whether we like it or not. Just like news, just like you do news too, there can be fake news and there can be genuine news, and they are all inside, you know, the social media. So I think that's my answer to that question, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you very, very much, sir. So let's look at how we can preserve
Mr. Moderator, sir,
You can call me, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Moderator, can I please follow up on this question?
Yes. Yes, sir. You can.
The follow-up is the fact that since we are talking of standardization, is there a way where this forum will be able to advise governments on how to go about the standardization? Because what Professor Moody has just said now, you see, not everybody, when people are pressed, some people don't have the means, and they just see something on social media and they feel it may address their problem. Of course, when you have problems, you want to go for any solution around, but you are not sure whether this thing is fake, whether it's genuine, but because of your problem, you want to go ahead and just. So is there a way, maybe this way, that we can have something to probably advise government on how they can go about the standardization, or how they'll be able to regulate what comes out? I don't know whether it's possible, but is it possible?
On social media. All right. Professor Moody, sir, please, sir, do you want to respond to that?
Yes. Well, there are several levels of regulations and standardizations. Government, that is why it is important, like in Ghana now, which is really, they are doing a very good job. You know, they are also regulating even the practice. Not just anybody can just come out and say, I'm a practitioner, or they must be registered with government. Nigeria is starting, but it's still so slow. There are a lot of war among themselves, but there must be standardizing of the practice, standardization of the products, and the standardization of the products, of course, is also ongoing, both on the national levels and the regional levels. Where I'm aware, for example, I'm a member of African regional level at the African Regional Standard Organization, which is actually trying to produce monographs and also standards for the practice, standards for the plants that we use, so that anywhere, you can check many of these things and see that they conform to standard before they are sold, before they are used, before they're allowed in legal, just in national trade as well as international trade. So, but it's still, as I said, still a work in progress. So, both at national level, we have the committee, we have the National Mayoral Committee, and we also have the African Regional Organization, committee, which is actually working hard on these things. In Nigeria, for example, for sure, Iwu is the chairman of that committee, and I'm vice chairman of that committee. So there are several efforts on this, and that is why people. It's very, very important that people also, try to see if you have recognized where government can have policies to have recognized outlets and recognized bases where these things can be obtained, so that people don't just go and because many times, even when they just produce, they say that this is something that they are selling. When you check very well, they are just selling rubbish. They may not sell the right plant, because number one, if I'm conclusive, that's why I'm conclusive, we must be able to identify, even when it is powdered form, we must be able to identify that this is the plant you are talking about. Because whether it's a whole form or powdered form, that is part and parcel of science that must be able to identify that this is what. Otherwise, anybody can just pack in anything and say that this is what they are selling, and that is what is happening, especially in Nigeria. Everybody just want money. They will just put something there, and they said that this is it. How do we assess that? How do we ascertain? Then it must go through all the storage checks by all the standards that we're talking about. So it's part and parcel of government policy. It's part and parcel of what should be done. And I hope with time, these things will be in place. In Ghana, it is very, very instructive that they have, like I mentioned, I was in Kumasi. If you go to Kumasi General Hospital, the government recognized that you can be a herbal pharmacy where you can actually assess the materials and the herbal medicine that you want, which has been standardized and which is registered by government. So you can actually buy it in the hospital premise. So it gives you at least that assurance that you are buying something that has gone through the process of standardization. I think that is where we must emphasize and advise our government so to do. We can make use of all our universities to fund this thing properly, not just with lip service, but fund it properly so that these things can be in place. We have so many plans, we're not even using 10% of what we have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Mr. Sibusiso, if you're there, kindly, I just want to hear your voice, and I want you to introduce yourself to the listeners at home.
Hi, moderator. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
we can hear you clearly, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. Prof Ujo just threw me, into the deep end here. I just thought the discussion will also be around the development of African languages using digital resources, a subject to which he just introduced me himself. But having said that, I have a question for Prof. Moody with regards to the products that you just presented here. One is that if some of the questions has actually been answered in terms of it being approved or not at this point in time, but when approved, how do you think it will compare or compete with the the mainstream or the traditional pharmaceutical
conventional medicine
companies. Yes. And also, if approved, would in terms of distribution, will it be limited to Nigeria, or it will be available throughout the country? I mean, throughout the world. Thank you.
All right, Professor Moody. Before you respond to that question, sir, Dr. Sibusiso, can I use doctor, or can I use Mr., or can I use Prof?
Moderator, I'm just Sibusiso, Mr.
Okay. All right, Mr. Sibusiso, thank you very much. You raised a very, very great point, which is part of this conversation, and that is how to sustain the African language. It's part of the conversation. Our indigenous knowledge and our indigenous language is what we are focusing on this conversation. And part of our indigenous knowledge is our roots, our leaf, which is dying every day. The same way our language is disappearing, that is the same way our roots, our leaves, our herbal things are disappearing without being used, or without us, turning them to something that can bring a profit. So we are still going to be talking about that, which I'm still going to also put you back on the spotlight. But I have another prof coming in as well that I'm going to allow to come in to be part of this conversation. So let me quickly give Professor Moody privilege to quickly respond to your question before we continue. Professor Moody, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. I think the last question is very germane, very important, and also the contribution he made about languages, which Professor Ojo also alluded to earlier in his statement. I just want to start from there, because some years ago, I was supervising a PhD student, and I was almost not going to allow her to graduate because of her poor English. But during that time, I now traveled to Japan to spend 10 months. And that changed my mind, because in Japan, their own language is more important than English. And that is, I believe, why they are actually where they are today. Because if you want to say anything, want to do anything, you must first of all learn their language. And anything that is foreign, they can easily know that this is foreign, because it's not been their language. It do not be even the alphabet. They have different alphabet for foreign things. So I have to pay my mind and to know that language is very, very important. So as the last speaker alluded to, I think we need that language to preserve our wisdom, to preserve our knowledge, and to promote what we can be as a people. Having said that, that question that he asked is that will it be available? Well, that is the goal of NAFDAC, because once NAFDAC is able to, for example, all the regulation bodies in different countries, once they're able to actually say this is okay, it means it's okay. It's approved. That means approved not just for Nigeria but across the world. It can be, at least where NAFDAC is recognized, and especially across Africa, and so it is, and that is why they take time to let it, to go through the whole hog, so that in terms of safety, in terms of efficacy, in terms of purity, because they have to, before they can do that, because they approve, they must not just approve the product, they must even approve where you're actually producing those products. So they will go and examine it, so that it is approved that it's being produced under hygienic, the condition, that you are following standard operating procedures, and that all your equipments are in place. Everything is in place before it can be finally be approved. So once it's done, so done, then it can go to any nation. It means it is national, both national and international. And I think that is where we should go, not just within our countries, but also in the regional collaborations that we are in. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So that's a beautiful response to that. I have Professor Michelle with us that is connecting with us. Prof, you already live and direct on the African portal. There is some noise coming from the background. Prof, if you can just let us have one out so that we can hear you. Prof, are you there, sir? Professor Mamo.
Yeah. Professor Mamo is a professor of innovation studies at the University of Technology, who is also concerned about African system of innovation. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you.
Prof,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I want to leave the floor to you to contribute to the conversation, how we can sustain and also keep the African knowledge and African language. What is your view about it, and what do you think we need to do in going forward?
Yes, with my brother, Professor Sunday Ojo, we have invented Afrilit, and I hope with Afrilit some genuine outcome will come about how we manage our languages. At the moment, we still value and treasure the foreign colonial languages. We do not really do our own languages. I must say to you, in the ancient time, when Ethiopia was called Africa, and in fact, the map and the geography, you should see. Today, I was in Kara Heritage Institute. There's a professor called Professor Matole Mashoke. He runs a very interesting institute where we now created what we call the Pan-African Renaissance Forum. And that one of the key discussions we had was on language also, and how we should really really excavate all the indigenous knowledge, and especially on the language side. On the language side, we have our own alphabet, an African alphabet. This was created thousands of years ago, many thousands of years ago, before the Europeans created their alphabet, the Latin and everything. So we have, I really think we should really use that language. We have our own calendar, we have everything. In fact, I should say Happy New Year to all of you. On the 12th of September 2020, the Gregorian calendar, we had the calendar that was created again. Very powerful calendar. Even European professors always say superior to the Gregorian calendar, and it's got spirituality, it's got solar, lunar, all this it combines in a very interesting way, and this is done by our ancestors. So the indigenous knowledge is very rich that was created in Africa. The spiritual knowledge the philosophy is very rich. In almost every sphere, we have a lot of knowledge, but the education system has not included it. We still do not include our education system. For example, the father of medicine is Imhotep. Imhotep is a genius of geniuses. I mean, what didn't he create about? But we don't call him the originator. You see, we don't acknowledge this and we don't teach. So I think what we need to do now is on the language side, we should actually do, digitalize it very much. All the languages could be preserved, and the similarities and the differences could be acknowledged. You know, when we say Ubuntu, almost all of them here in South Africa, they have different words for Ubu, Ubat. There are many things they say, the same word, but in different ways they express it, but similarly with a similar tone. So what we need is the root languages of Africa are not many. In fact, our Professor Kwesi Pryor, I just met him. In fact, we had a conference in Mpumalanga University. It was very interesting time I spent. And he actually spoke also on how our root languages are not many, and that we could find a way to actually do it. So what we need is we need to get this forum that we have created now, the Pan-African Renaissance Forum. Maybe all of you join us, and then we see how we can also really decolonize the education system by integrating and hybridizing it, by bringing in completely in the education system so that our children grow up very, very strong. The key change makers, game changers are the children, the young people. We are older now, we're growing older. So we need to really focus on them to see that they could do the differences they could make. That's my brief suggestion. Sorry.
All right, sir. All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir, very much, Professor Mamu. Thank you very much for that valid point that you just put on the spotlight. But Prof, let's quickly look at it. You mentioned Ethiopia and the calendar of Ethiopia, the language in Ethiopia. Look at the situation of Ethiopia today and the way the language and the indigenous knowledge is disappearing. What can we do to bring those one that is already in extinction back? And what can we do to let the current generation see the sense in what we have in Africa? Our language, our herbs, our roots, our leaves, what do we need to do to let them fall in love with it, especially for them to be able to use them as well?
No, you asked a very important question. We have a challenge in Africa. The biggest challenge is that external actors link with our own internal politicians, and they do not follow the African agenda. They take the African agenda, but they do opposite, anti-African. This is happening now in Ethiopia. If you, I wish you could get a chance to read what Henry Kissinger said. He said many years ago, before when the military government was ruling Ethiopia, he said, this country in Africa, if it stands up and it's successful, it means the whole of Africa will be successful. Therefore, we must divide, and then we should use ethnic, language, all these divisions. And then he worked very much with the dividers at that time. And I could send you the link so you could read it yourselves. And then that is the kind of thing. They even had a meeting in Khartoum, all the forces, the internal Ethiopian forces with them. And then they created what they call the ethnic division in Ethiopia. Ethiopia now is divided into many states based on language division. It's a kind of apartheid constitution that it's under. Now they are using almost genocide, you would call it, against what they call the Amhara people and the Orthodox Church and so on. They are attacking. So this problem is happening, and they also change the language. Even the alphabet, they use the Roman and Semitic alphabet. What's it called? They refused our alphabet. In fact, a professor called Stephen Robinson, the University of the Swedish, he said that alphabet is superior to the Latin alphabet and the Roman alphabet. But that's what he said. Even even he said the same thing about the calendar too. Everything. What did they do? Our own people, they follow these mission churches and all these things. And then what do? They imitate, they mimic, and then they devalue our own languages. This is what our problem is. I think it's a serious issue. What is happening in Ethiopia now is a dangerous issue that's happening. I ask you all, in fact, we did a New Year, virtual conference where we said to everybody, all of us unite and say that they should stop this division that they are doing in Ethiopia, because dividing and hurting Africa, Ethiopia is also hurting Africa. So all of us are big. So let's try to
Professor Mambo, sorry, let me interrupt you, sir. I'm so sorry. Let me interrupt you because I want to bring Professor Moody in. The reason why I want to do that is that I want us to now put side by side. We have already identified the problem. Now we are working towards the solution. Before we say goodbye on this program, there will be a recommendation. And that recommendation is something that each and every one of us will need to follow. And we need to make sure that each recommendation, there is a solution to it. By the time we are coming back, the next time we are having the conversation again, there should be something that we're going to be putting on the table that, okay, out of the recommendation that we give in the last conversation, this has been, we address it and it's already on the pipeline. Professor Moody, you are one of the great African leaders that I believe that you believe so much in this continent. But during some diagnosis in the hospital, we have a case whereby the doctor will say, we are sorry, we have tried all we could, but we couldn't find what exactly the problem is. Can you please take this patient home, go and use the traditional way to find solution to this problem, because on our own side, we cannot find anything. Sir, at the end of the day, when they take these patients to the traditional people, the person gets healed and they discover what the problem is, what they cannot discover in the government or in the hospital. They end up discovering it as just one of the traditional healers place. What is causing this? And why is it not that, we should now make that a kind of system that will be working hands to hands and together in our hospital, instead of sending them back home? Why don't we introduce the other solution that we know that is the way out into the hospital as well? Those are the two things I want you to please share light on, and let's see what you think is going to be the solution to that.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think ultimately that is what should be and that's actually what even WHO is working. If you look at the last, if you listen to the last World Summit, that is the first one that was held in India. Our own Iwela Okonjo was one of the guest speakers. He spoke, made an opening remark, and it was a very, very touching remark that she made, that really what the world should be moving towards is what we call integrated medical care. They've always looked at it because of the way the world has looked at everything from the Western point of view. They've always looked at it as complementary or alternative. They call it alternative. But she said it's not really an alternative thing. It must be integrated. And that should be, the aim. That should be the direction which we are going. And that is why so far China is in the lead. India is following. Ghana is also, even in Africa here. I mentioned. It's a pity that Alhaji Yusuf is not here. To give his own view. But ultimately, if there's a national cohesion, like in China, it's like you have access to both. You can actually decide which side you want within the same premises. You can decide that this is the way you want to be treated. Many years ago, the Western world was not accepting acupuncture. Many years ago, they thought it was something unreal. Until now, science has found that this is a real thing, and even medical doctors in America are learning acupuncture and using it. The same thing, as I mentioned, even in Ghana, you go to several of their hospitals which are recognized and established. You have both herbal pharmacy, herbal medicine section, and also conventional. So each can be referred, because the point is, diseases, medical care is not a monopoly of one culture. It's not a monopoly of one country. There are several ways. There are many diseases that even I imagine that are just not known in medical world yet, and ancient wisdom has been used severally, by traditional. By our people, by way of and be able to solve problems. I remember very well when I was growing up, there's a particular viral disease which was common at that time as a young person. My grandfather was a herbalist in town, and we have a very, very good mission hospital, Enzyme Hospital in Egbe. The doctors, when they see somebody having that viral disease, they know that he has the medication that is more superior than whatever they have in the hospital. So they will even send the patients to him in town and say, go to Baba Moody, because he has that colorable which he gives to them. And within 2 days, 3 days, you are well. You will throw up, and the viral disease will go away. So there's comparative advantage. Some medicines are better when we use herbal medicine. Some are better when we use conventional medicine. So there must be integration, exchange of this knowledge, so that the patients on the long run is the one that benefits. So I think it's just the way forward, really, and we must be serious about it, so that we don't throw away what we have, and on the basis of that everything is not good. There are good things from one, and there are good things from the other, which you can actually synergize together and integrate for the benefit of the population. Thank you. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah.
All right. With that,
Mr. Moderator, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator, please. Can I just put in something? I think if I don't say it. All right. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, sir. We are here for, we are sorry about this, sir. We are here for solution. We are here for progress, and each and everything discussed here must be put to the practice. It's not a talk show, it's a reality show. It's a show that wants to redirect the mind of Africa to the solution. It's the right time for us to get it right. It's the right time for Africa to wake up to the reality of the time. So go ahead, sir.
Yeah, actually, that's the reason I don't want to leave this forum without mentioning what I wanted to say. You see, part of the problem we have in Africa is the fact that we see ourselves as second-rate citizens. And I think the moment we look at ourselves as individuals that are at par with anybody in the world, that's the moment we will move forward. I will cite some examples before I go to, you see, if you look at an African woman, she wants to wear the hair of a white woman. She wants to wear, yes, she wants to wear the color of a white woman, because she has been told in the past that African are second-class citizens. I remember in those days, they used to tell us that, well, speaking in vernacular is not allowed in the school. And because of that, some people, some private people who open businesses in schools, they started introducing English language. Right from the moment a child is able to speak. And if you catch a baby who has not mastered his mother tongue, and you ask him to start speaking, definitely he will not be able to speak his mother tongue again. And you see, if you look at what the Caucasians, the Oyinbos do, what they do is that by the time a child is about 3 years, even before he's 3 years, they're already teaching him on how to do things that are related to their culture, their languages, their beliefs, and whatever they think. But in our own case, instead of doing that, what we do is that we want our children to master our own masters' culture, their language, and their beliefs. And I think the moment we run away from this, we will continue to be second-rate citizens, second-class citizens, and will not be able to get to where we want to get to. We need to tell our people that Africa, we are actually, like one of the musicians said that I'm black and proud. We need to be proud of our culture. We need to be proud of our color. We need to be proud of the achievements of our forefathers. And when we do that and we pass it on to our children, that's the only time we can continue to have this conversation. Because if we don't, in the next 20, 30 years, there will be no conversation at all. And I think we need to talk about it seriously. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Professor Joe have something to contribute. Yes. Professor Joe, you can go ahead, sir.
Yes. In terms of key points, we could take home to be considered and recommendations. Professor Moody has mentioned about countries in Africa where there are good practices go in the right direction. Ghana is there, South Africa is there. He mentioned also what's going on in China and India. I think our government should find a way, a forum where there is the sharing of best practices in different nations of Africa. The way, it's a pity that Dr. Ruslan couldn't come. He is currently based in South Africa. He's doing very excellently well with herbal medicine, the clinical part of it, which he wants to marry with the scientific aspect now. So a forum where best practices in different countries are shared. We need that. Secondly, you mentioned about the disappearance of our plants and thereabouts. When are people talking of afforestation to mitigate deforestation, you see them planting just any kind of trees anywhere. Why can't we be planting these trees that of medicinal value, that's economic value to us when we are doing afforestation? In this environment, we have urban gardening, where we're encouraged to utilize our environment in our plot of lands where the house is not, or planting things. The people, white people, they like planting flowers all over, beautify it. But personally, I plant either fruits, trees, or some other medicinal plants. Things I can make green tea from and everything. I think this will be part of how we can continue to advance our medicinal plants such that they do not disappear. Also, from the technology side, mention was made by, I think, Professor Laitan and maybe also by Professor Moody, the side effects or some kind of toxicity and some kind of negative effects of using our herbal medicine. I read about a few days ago that in the US, about 5,000 people die, maybe on a monthly basis, because on wrong prescription or whatever, when they have been administered some medication, the side effect and all those kind of things. We have to acknowledge that we may not get it perfect at a goal. We need to go through some gestation period. The scientists, pharmacognosy scientists like Professor Moody, need to join hands with the practitioners, work together, rather than compete or dismissing each other. We complement each other to formalize, to standardize, to scientify our indigenous knowledge of medicine so that we can raise it to a global acceptability, as it is. So, lastly, there's the issue of drug-to-drug interaction. We don't know if you use this medication now, how does it interact with the other? This drug-to-food interaction, we have that in the conventional medicine. We need to deploy technology, common technology, to be able to develop apps, by which we can be able to get knowledge of this, that we can minimize the effects, the negative effects of using the traditional medicine for lack of knowledge. Those are points I want to add on. Yeah.
All right, sir. Yeah, let me just quickly allow Dr. Yusuf to also quickly, I'm going to connect him through the phone call. I'm going to put him on the spotlight through the phone call so that he can be able to make his presentation. And I still have Professor Mamo is still in the house. And also I have Mr. Subusiso as well in the house, that I believe that we're going to make a recommendation at the end of this conversation. But I'm trying to get connected to Dr. Yusuf so that he can be able to now see what we are talking about, the practical aspect of it, because he's already putting it into practical and he's already making a production that is working and people are buying it and it's working for them. But before I allow him to come in, because I think his line is still cutting the line now, probably he's busy or something. So in the absence of that, let me just quickly talk about the issue of this kind of medication that people are saying that take 3 pawpaw, and that I'm directing it to Professor Larry Moody, that if you can take the pawpaw leaf, soak it in the water, drink it in the morning, and this thing will disappear. Take the cassava leaf, put it in the palm wine or palm oil or palm what, and all this kind of a thing. Is this something that is also good for the community, or is it something that is not right to follow?
Yes, thank you very much, sir. That is again one part of this indigenous knowledge, and we cannot take it away. We cannot take that indigenous knowledge away. But unfortunately, many people don't have that IK. They just see it and they don't know whether even the way to do it, but they just prescribe. You must be able to know, and that is what people have grown up with. For example, if somebody has been
all right,
in practice.
Sorry, Prof. I'm sorry about this. I managed to get Dr. Yusuf online. Dr. Yusuf, please, we just wanted to make your presentation in terms. I know the network is very bad on your side. Hello, sir. You are live, sir. Go ahead, sir. Yes, sir. You can go ahead, sir. Okay. All right. If you can manage to connect back, please let us know. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, sir. Sorry about that, Prof. I'm really, really sorry about it. You can continue, sir. You can continue, sir. Professor Moody. Okay, it seems his network is already filled there. Professor Moody? Okay, I think it's a network problem. All right, Prof, Professor Mamo. Professor Mamo is also in the house. Professor Mamo, please, let's talk about the question that I just threw out. That is our indigenous herb, and that's our root and our leaf. What can we do for us to be able to generate a kind of revenue from our root and our leaf in Africa? What do we need to do?
Well, we funded to say that the indigenous knowledge. Is that what you are asking? Where we can find sources for funding?
Professor Momo, can you please speak more louder to the mic, to the phone, so that we can hear you, sir?
Yeah. But I think with my phone. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
I asked you what kind of funds, where we can find sources for the indigenous knowledge hub that you are thinking about. Is that what you're saying? How do we?
I don't hear that question.
Abba indigenous knowledge, medicine, indigenous medicine.
Is
indigenous plants.
Yes. The first thing we do on this indigenous knowledge, especially on the traditional medicine, is that there's so much knowledge, so much traditional medicine. Even here where we are in South Africa, a lot of the people do not go to medical doctors and so on. They use traditional medicine. So what we need to know, to understand, is to link the universities to actually go to the rural areas and know this knowledge, record it, code it, and really value it and recognize it, and create also a way by which it can be recognized. For example, the Chinese, a woman called Yu invented, medicine for malaria, and now she got a Nobel Prize. She never went to university. She did it from traditional. In our culture, also in Africa, we should try to do that. But we are not doing it because our universities are not linked. They are not going to the rural areas, studying all these medicines, understanding them, valuing them, innovating them, so that we can actually record them, code them, and then value them. Done not by systematically by all the stakeholders, the government, the universities, right? And also the other sectors are not engaged systematically. We need to create a systematic way by which this can be done. In fact, the African Union and others must involve in this. They set up things, but they don't practice them. And I think the process must be done. And this hub idea you have, the indigenous knowledge hub, is a very good, excellent idea. If we make it a modern, an example, we do it, then it will be fantastic. Then we can then make it all others learn from it. Something like that is what we could do. That's my suggestion.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Mamo. That is a very good point there. And that, to say it, is that we need to let our university as well go out there, let them also discover our root, let them discover our leaf, and let us see what we can use it for for the benefit of this great continent, and to also develop a system whereby our own root and our own leaf, our own thing can be able to turn to something that we can also sell to other parts of the world. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Before we call it a day out of this program, we want to go to the part which is going to be the final part of this conversation. That is the indigenous language, how to preserve them and how to make sure that we have our language alive. And Professor Ojo already mentioned it, that any language that is not in the internet, or any idea that is not on the internet, is possible to disappear. So let me give Professor Ojo opportunity to moderate this aspect, because this is one of the trends, and this is one of what we focus on in Africa. Professor Ojo.
Thank you very much. In my presentation, I mentioned the importance of the role of languages, as reservoir, as window, to our indigenous knowledge, our culture, and all that. And the fact of anthropological intertwine between our culture and our language, we need to realize that. Now, to get knowledge in the language onto the internet, a fundamental issue or requirement is that language has to be digitized. What do I mean by that? We need to generate data set that represent or models that language and be able to store this in the computer in such a way that we can develop programs, software, drawn from this data to enable us to represent knowledge in that language on the computer in particular, then in the internet in general. And when we have this data set generated, we call it lexical resources, it's very, very crucial that the language specialist, the linguist, and the technology specialist, they have to work together, because the language specialists, they are the custodian of knowledge of that language. And the technology, they know the mechanism, the science and technology of getting that represented on the computer systems or the internet. So the working together of language specialists and our technology specialists is very, very important. It was UNESCO I was quoting earlier, which we are referring to, who says that any language or not knowledge, be it cultural, indigenous, not on the internet, it's just a matter of time, it will disappear. Why is it like that? The feature, when you look at the future, our youths, owns the future. Those of us older people will pass away at a point. We leave the stage for the youth. The youths of nowadays, they are technology savvy. Anything that they could not handle with their mobile phone or the internet, they just don't want to relate to it. Gone are the days when we were growing up, we go and sit with our grandpa, grandma, telling us stories, wisdom of indigenous wisdom. None of our children want to go back to the roots and learn that now. So it's in our own interest to get these languages available on the internet. And some areas that we are working on this, why I invited Civil CISO, is that we are working together at how we can digitize some of the South African languages so that we can build human language technology around them. So presently, most of African languages, we don't have them in digital form. We don't have the digital resources to take advantage of what information and communication technology offers for us to be able to develop African indigenous language technology. Professor Mama has referred to initiative we have taken. We register an NPO we call Africa Indigenous Language Technology Institute, based in South Africa here, which we use as a hub, where researchers technologists, language specialists will put their mind together, research and develop the technology for African languages. Most of the tools and techniques available, they are mainly for English and other languages, which have resources that digital resources that African languages don't have. And that is why out of the 7,000 odd languages of the world, spoken languages, 10 dominate the internet space, with over 80% of internet resources being in those languages. Those are the English, Chinese, French, and so on and so forth like that. None of those 10 are of African language origin. So our researchers, our language practitioners, specialists need to work together for us to generate data resources, digitize data resources from our languages to be able to advance our language and consequently our culture, our indigenous knowledge on the internet. Otherwise, it's a matter of time for them to disappear.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. And that will give me opportunity to let Mr. Sibususo to please give us his presentation. What do we do? Now is the recommendation. How can we make this work? And how long can this take us? Because the time is no longer on our side to make this happen.
Well, thank you, moderator. Can you hear me, right?
Yes. I can hear you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think as a lecturer myself, the institutions or universities, they don't do much, in terms of developing African languages. I'm saying this because we have a module at the Durban University of Technology called Terminology Development, but it's just a module. That's it. I think there should be some kind of an institutional formalized institutional structure that should see to it that the African languages are being developed, because even now we are actually developing university language policy, but then the management, they insist that the language of communication is still going to be English, so which then now defeats the purpose. So but having worked with Prof Ujo for a few times, for a while that we've been working, I've learned quite a lot. This is all new to me myself, because we just introduced the module called Human Language Technology. So in there, we are actually we are working towards developing African languages, isiZulu in this case, using machine translation. So I'm hoping with this project and the recommendations that he actually puts on the board as the university, we should be able to actually start taking the development of African languages very, very seriously, because it's not exactly what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Sorry, just a quick intervention there. Information I gathered before this thing. In Nigeria today, there's a language we call Yoruba, which is dominant in the western part and the middle area. Only 6 universities out of hundreds of universities you have in Nigeria offer program on this language. Whereas in the United States, 34 universities have program on Yoruba. What is the consequence of this? In Canada today, we have information that Indians are teaching our children African languages such as Igbo and Yoruba when their parents could not teach them at home. So Indians have gone to learn our language to teach our children. But as Sibuso will be aware, we cannot just teach language without bringing the culture behind that language together. So I, as an Indian, understand the culture behind the language and teach those children that language appropriately. So this is the dilemma we are finding ourselves. If you don't do something on time, the serious endangerment of our African languages and causing our culture is real.
Can I just intervene, please?
Yes, Prof.
Sir?
You can Professor Moody, just go ahead. Our anchor is a bit of yeah.
I just want to support what you got. I just want to support what you just said, because it's something that is very, very frightening. You know, some years ago, American government they will sponsor every year some of their students, university students, to come to Nigeria to learn Yoruba. They had a center, Yoruba language center in the University of Ibadan. And they will put their students as part of practical thing. They also want them to learn the culture. So they will send those students to Yoruba homes. In fact, when we were living in UI, we hosted at least 2 of them, one white and one black American. So they did this for some years. And then after some years, they stopped that particular sponsorship, which was they were sponsoring, they were paying for it. They stopped it, and they transferred that school to America. They transferred some of the teachers that were at that centers. They gave them appointment to go to America, and so they now have those schools, at least those schools, functioning in America. What am I saying? It is very, very sad that our students are losing the language, are losing the culture, but other nations are very interested. And that is the same thing across the world. You find if you go to Japan, you have to learn their language. They have language centers. If you go to China, the same thing. But it's only us that are not valuing what we have, even in terms of language. So I just want to support that. That is a very, very important thing, which we need to actually address very, very quickly. Otherwise, this language and culture is actually disappearing very fast. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I went behind to make sure that I clean some of the noise that is coming into the broadcast, because I see that some people are connecting and their line is bringing some echoing into the conversation, and people are complaining on the other side about it, that they can't hear what we are saying. I have Mr. Dan with me in the house, and Mr. Dan just raised a very valid point, which I want Professor Moody to quickly look into in just 3 minutes, because we have about 5 minutes to round up this whole program. And that's Mr. Dan is talking about a particular seed or fruit in Tanzania. He said in Tanzania they have a same fruit which are local, and they are using them to assist people with cancer. But there is something that he mentioned. He said there is also a perception that if you know indigenous medicine, you are termed a witch. That is an area I want Prof to quickly talk about, because this is what is happening. And you can remember, sir, during the COVID-19, when Tanzania said that they have a solution to the COVID-19, also Madagascar also come with the World Health Organization put a blind ear to read. They don't even listen to read. Does that mean that what discovered in Africa is not acceptable by the world? And why do we need to term the people that is using the African herbs product or African herb for health? Why are they tagging them as a witch or a witcher? Why that is happening, and what is your advice to the people doing that?
Thank you, sir. I think this has been mentioned a little bit earlier by Professor Ademola, where he's mentioned that we don't value what we have. African women would like to have Brazilian hair or white woman's hair. They don't value the hair they have, the one they have. It's only in some cultures now that at least we value even our wares, our attires. And I think until we go back and really value ourselves. One of the things, of course, why people still deal with that old mentality is that, you know, many of our own traditional medicine are, of course, linked to the occult in the past. But we have, as I've always said, you cannot throw the baby and the bathwater away. You must take away the baby, the good things of it, and use it. And then throw the bad water away. You cannot throw both the baby and the bad water away, as many people want to do. So our indigenous knowledge, our knowledge are there, and those are the things we must rescue and promote and preserve. There are some things, until you do it the way it is done, it will not give you the right answer. I mentioned earlier about artemisinin. You know, when they were doing research, and they were just doing research like science without really following what people were using the plant for and how they are doing it, they failed until they went back to see how do you really use them. And they said that they see that they don't have to boil. If you boil it in water, you boil the herb in water, you destroy the chemical constraints. So they have to use some other solvent apart from water, and without boiling, just extraction the cold until they got answer. So we must value those knowledge. Those are important. Otherwise, we cannot get the answers we want. I also always give an example. You know, we have a bean in Calabar in Southeast Nigeria. It's called Esere, Rhizostigma venenosum. There is, if you want to grow it with proper agriculture, normal agriculture, like people grow it, you cannot grow it. Any researcher that goes there, except you follow the indigenous knowledge as how the people grow it, they cannot grow that plant. So those are areas of indigenous knowledge that are very important, and which must, as intellectual property, must also be preserved in a way that it will benefit our people. And these are the realities. But unfortunately, we blanket everything as witches. No, they are technical things. Wisdom, missing wisdom. How do you have to do it? Many of them you cannot write in books. So it is important that we recognize that, and we demystify this situation of calling everything that people do as witches. No, not everything is witches or wizard or wizardry. There are knowledge that are using, which is very, very important for us to preserve. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you very, very much, sir. I believe that we have a robust conversation, and this is not a talk show. This is a reality show, and we already developed a lot of things. This is where we're going to be drawing the curtain, and I'm believing that by the grace of God, we are coming back next month, and it's going to be better and better and better again. There is a lot of things to discuss, but there is a lot of things that we already discussed as well that we need to apply, because application is the proof of learning. I want to sincerely thank Professor Larry Moody for coming out to be part of this conversation. Thank you very, very much, sir. We really appreciate it. And thank you for the great knowledge that you share with us. And also to Professor Olusegun, thank you very much for the love and for believing in this continent and for the great work you are doing in our community here in South Africa. And to Dr. Yusuf as well, thank you very much. Dr. Professor Mr. Ademola, I'm not sure which one it is. Thank you very, very much. Mr. Sibusisa as well, thank you very, very much. Doctor, do you want to say something?
No, I said that's
okay.
Professor,
and to
Professor
okay,
Light.
sir. Oh, Professor Lighter, thank you very much. And also to Professor Mamu, thank you very, very much. To everyone, thank you so much for the pleasure of your time. Professor Joe, you are going to do the conclusion of this, and that is the recommendation, and we say goodbye from here.
Okay, thank you very much. Despite the challenge of the internet, there may be some load shedding here and there. We're able to do a bit that we've done today. In particular, having our professor of pharmacognosy on board, who has really elucidated a lot what we want to do. The reality is that we have what it takes to provide African solution to this African problem of not valuing our own thing, of not leveraging on available resources indigenous to us to lift up our own healthcare system. As has been acknowledged, we have a rich heritage in this aspect of our culture. I will take care of our health. And I believe what we have done today is a starting point, an advocacy for us to advance, promote, and preserve our indigenous knowledge and language, in particular, our healthcare, indigenous healthcare system. It's real, and I'm hoping that next time we'll have Dr. Yusram on board, who's going to show us some practical thing that's been done here. We are happy that some countries in Africa, they've taken this seriously, e.g. Ghana, South Africa. Things are working quite well there, comparable to some other places. There's a need for other nations of Africa to learn from these, where things are working in these countries. And in Nigeria, that is being explained why NAFDAC is listing things, and then you cannot sell it on the pharmacy shops and not the like. We got the reason today that, you know, it needs to go to rigorous scientific process to validate those things and lift it up into a scientific level where we can give it global feasibility. So there are a lot of complementarity. There are some medicinal plants we have in East Africa, we don't have in West. South, we don't have in the North. It's important that we look into this, the possibility of seeing whether those that are available elsewhere can be replicated in other places, or if it cannot be replicated, let it be source of raw materials where we can have a thing. Lastly, a situation where we discover things in Africa and we have to wait for the Western world to validate for us. I think we have what it takes, human resources and the technology, for us to be able to do a serious work on this. And I'm aware that Professor Moody is working towards or setting up a laboratory, you know, where all the standard that is advocating for, we could do it within our own system, using standard, widely acclaimed, you know, scientific tools and techniques for us to be able to advance, promote, and preserve our indigenous knowledge, particularly in the area of our indigenous healthcare system. I want to stop on this note and thank everybody for being part of this. Some just got the link today. Professor Lighton, you know, for example, is really glad to have you on board and remember for that. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Professor Ojo. Thank you very, very much, sir, for that great conversation that we have together. I really appreciate you coming out to be part of this conversation and for being the co-host of this program, especially what you are doing in our continent. I'm going to give you 1 minute as well to talk about your institution and the balance that institution that is bringing to our continent, Africa. But please, Professor Olanrewaju, before I say goodbye to you, Professor Ojo mentioned something. Just mention it now, and I want you to please help us talk about it. The laboratory, when is it coming, and the importance of it? If you are still there, sir, please, sir, we want to hear from you directly, sir. If you are still there, sir, I would really appreciate so that will be our joy. So that when we bring you back next time, we know that there is a laboratory that is going to, come up in Nigeria or wherever you want to put it. So let me leave the floor for you, sir. Professor Moody, you just have 1 minute to let us know about it. I'm sorry about the time. We are just rounding up.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Like I just shared with Professor Olusegun Ojo. Yeah, I'm just retired now, just 2 weeks ago. So I'm just trying to now have what we call a post-retirement, a little rest, and then I hope by God's grace by early next year we might be able to have something on ground. But this is a very, very important area which my students, my collaborators, at least we are trying to put However small we can start, this is something we want to really do, not just for ourselves, but especially for Africa. So by within the next 1 year that God's grace, we will be able to put something on ground. We'll be communicating as soon as this is on ground. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
All right, Africa, I'm so excited about it because we have the great leaders that believe in this continent and also believing in what we have in Africa. So let's look forward to that. By beginning of next year, the laboratory is coming to Africa. We are not sure where it's going to be in Africa, but we know that is coming, and that is very sure. And I want to sincerely thank Mariboma from Jamaica connecting with us. He said thank you very much, and bye everyone. Thank you so much, Mariboma. I really appreciate it. It's one of the great voice in the diaspora connecting to this conversation and also be part of this great conversation. I really appreciate it, Mariboma. God bless you. Thank you very much. And sir, I want to sincerely thank you as well. Prof, thank you for coming out. As a matter of fact, you're already in the list. I think we have a lot we need to learn from you as well. And one of our beliefs is that we don't want the previous generation to go with the knowledge. Remember that our forefathers, some of them die with all this knowledge. Some of them put a little in writing. Some of them, because of the lack of education, they cannot write and they cannot read. What we are doing today is a way to keep some of the information for the incoming generation. So all the knowledge, all the ideas that we can use to develop this continent, sir, please, is welcome on this broadcast on the African portal. That is our job. Africa is our business. And until when Africa wake up to the reality of the time, when we can find solution to the problem of Africa within Africa, that is when there's going to be a development and growth in Africa. But if Africa is still waiting for somebody to come out from outside to come and solve the problem of Africa, that will not happen, and we will need to wait forever. So let Africans look inwardly. Let us find solutions to some of the problems that we are facing in Africa. We believe so much that with these great leaders that we have now, the solution is right here with us. And with that, thank you very much, Professor Olanrewaju, Jones Moody, thank you very much, and Professor Ademola, thank you very much. Professor Ojo, thank you very, very much. I'm proud to be a Yoruba person. And with that, I'm going to be rounding up this program with Yoruba. And to everyone listening to me, I'm not apologize to anyone. I'm so proud of it. We cannot come here and blow grammar for 2 hours and we believe that we have done the right thing. Láti bẹ̀ lọ, èyí tí ń gbọ́ ní gbogbo àgbáńlá ayé, mo dúpẹ́ pé òkun tí wọn ò ní bàjẹ́, èdè wọn ò ní kú, àṣà wa ò ní parun. Àṣà àti ṣe àdámọ́ ni abá nílé àwọn bàbá wa ni. Ká tó dáyé, kán tó bí wa, kán tó bí bàbá wa, òun làṣà ti wà. Àṣà yàtọ̀ sẹ́sìn, ẹ̀sìn dádúró, àṣà dádúró, ohun adáyébá ni, kò sì gbọdọ̀ sọ́dànù. Ẹ jẹ́ ká mú àwọn ewé àti egbò tí àwọn bàbá wa fi sílẹ̀. Ẹ jẹ́ ká wá ọ̀nà tá a lè gbà láti mú wọn papọ̀ kí wọ́n lè di ohun tí à ń mú ṣọ̀rọ̀, kí wọ́n lè di ohun tí à ń mú ṣòwò. Àwọn orílẹ̀-èdè tó gòkè àgbà lágbàáyé, àwọn orílẹ̀-èdè bíi China, àwọn orílẹ̀-èdè bíi India, nǹkan àmúṣọrọ̀ wọn ó ní nǹkan tí wọ́n lò tí wọ́n fi gòkè àgbà. Àwa náà sì a ní nǹkan àmúṣọrọ̀ tí a lè lò láti gbé orílẹ̀-èdè wa àti àyíká wa, pàápàá ilẹ̀ adúláwọ̀, láti gbé gòkè àgbà. Ẹ jẹ́ ká lo àwọn nǹkan wọ̀nyí fún ìdàgbàsókè. Mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n, onímọ̀ àti ògúnnágbòǹgbò tí ń dátọ́ lẹ́nu ìgbín, torí ẹ̀ ló jẹ́ kí n wọnú èdè Yorùbá, torí èdè òyìnbó ò lè ṣàlàyé wọn. Prof lámọ orílẹ̀-èdè òyìnbó lápọ̀nlé kan tó ní láárí, ṣùgbọ́n èdè Yorùbá lápọ̀nlé. Yorùbá sọ wípé àwọn ní ògúnnágbòǹgbò tí ń dátọ́ lẹ́nu ìgbín, ẹni tó dáńtọ́ òun náà ń pè ń bẹ̀, onímọ̀, olóye, ẹni tí nǹkan yé tó yé tinútẹ̀yìn, òun ni wọ́n ń pè bẹ́ẹ̀. Ẹni tí nǹkan ò yé, wọn ò lè pè ní ẹni tó ògúnnágbòǹgbò. Ẹni tí nǹkan yé náà ń pè bẹ́ẹ̀. Bàbá mo dúpẹ́ pé òkú lọ́wọ́ yín, mo fi ọmọ Yorùbá mo fi wọ̀ yín, mo sì dúpẹ́ ọgbọ́n orí àti ipò tẹ́ dìmú àtọ́jú orí, mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ yín bàbá. Ẹ pẹ́ fún wa lágbára Èdùmàrè, àgbà òsì ní tán lórílẹ̀. Gbogbo ìmọ̀ àti ọgbọ́n tẹ́ ń fún wa ní àkókò yìí yóò jẹ́ èyí tí ìran tí ń bọ̀ tí wọ́n mú ṣe ọ̀rọ̀, tí wọ́n sì mú ṣe ayé. Mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n Olanrewaju Jones Moody, bàbá wa, ẹ pẹ́ fún wa o, ojú òní tì yín, àgbà yín yóò dalẹ̀. Ìgbà ìfẹ̀yìntì tẹ́ fẹ̀yìntì yìí kò ní jẹ́ gbà wàhálà fún yín o àwọn àìsàn tí máa ń kọlù yàn nípa ìfẹ̀yìntì kò ní kọlù yín o ẹ rẹ̀ mi ṣayé ẹ sì rówó ṣayé mo dúpẹ́ pọ̀ lọ́wọ́ yín ojú òní tì yín torí tí ló jẹ́ wọnú èdè Yorùbá tí bá sọ pé a parí òkè wọn á ní goodbye ṣe ló dàbí ìgbà tó jẹ́ wípé mo kàn gbé yín wá n ò fi iyì tó tọ́ n ò fi wọ̀ yín Yorùbá nìkan ló sì lè ṣe mo dúpẹ́ pọ̀ lọ́wọ́ yín ẹ pẹ́ fún wa bàbá wa Professor ni Yorùbá pè wọ́n Yorùbá ní Professor Yorùbá pè wọ́n ní ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n onímọ̀ ògúnnágbòǹgbò tí ń datọ́ lẹ́nu ìgbín àgbà ọ̀jẹ̀ àti àgbàlagbà ní àwùjọ wa lórílẹ̀‐èdè South Africa ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n Olúṣẹ́gun Òjó mo dúpẹ́ pọ̀ lọ́wọ́ yín fún àkókò yín àtìgbà tẹ́ ẹ fílẹ̀ fún wa láti wá sójú òpó ètò yìí kí a lè jọ ní ìfọ̀rọ̀jomitoro ọ̀rọ̀ yìí àgbà yóò dálẹ̀ o ẹ pẹ́ fún wa lágbára ìdùnnú ojú òsì ní tìyín ẹ̀yin bàbá wa méjèèjì kí àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá tí wọ́n bí sókè òkun káwọn náà lè bá mọ̀ wípé akàwé òní àmọ́sọ èdè ẹ̀rù ó bà wọ́n gbà tán bá gbọ́ Yorùbá lẹ́nu yín torí wọ́n ń wo Professor wájú orúkọ yín tán bá gbọ́ Yorùbá lẹ́nu yín ẹ̀rù ó bà wọ́n èyí ó wàá jẹ́ ọ̀kan lára nǹkan tá a lè lò fún wọn wípé in tó bá fi lè kúrú Professor Òjó máa sọ Yorùbá tó yánrántí báyìí yóò jẹ́ pé dè yìí nǹkan kan wà nú ẹ̀ ní ẹ jẹ́ àgbélé yòó bí àpẹẹrẹ fún wọn kán lè bá mọ̀ pé èdè tó lápèlé èdè tó pé ó lè dè tá à ń sọ ẹ bá ń dágbére fáwọn aráalé pé ó dọjọ́ mi ó dọjọ́ rí lédè Yorùbá bàbá wa Lanre Moody.
Lanre Moody yẹn.
tó ẹ ṣe olóòtú ètò àdúpẹ́ púpọ̀ wọ́n fẹ́ dágbére fún gbogbo wa nílé pé ó dìgbà mìíràn Olúwa kò ní kó àtúnrí o lórúkọ Jésù ẹ ṣé púpọ̀.
ẹ ṣeun bàbá wa tí ẹ ti gbọ́ báyìí ẹ má rò pé torí pé yan di Professor ẹ wá ti ní pé kí Yorùbá wá di èèwọ̀ kò rí bẹ́ẹ̀ àwọn èèbó ló fẹ́ wọ́n náà fẹ́ bọ́gbọ́n wọlé pé kí wọ́n bá lè gba èdè wa ní wọ́n fẹ́ fi pàǹdà wọ́n fẹ́ fi gba nǹkan rí lọ́wọ́ wa bàbá wa Professor Olúṣẹ́gun Òjó ẹ bá ń dágbére fáwọn aráalé kẹsì bá ń sọ ọ̀rọ̀ àpilẹ̀sọ pé ẹ dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ àwọn tó wá sójú òpó yìí ká má fi yàn dágbére.
A dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ gbogbo ẹ̀yin tí ẹ wà nù àpéjọ wa yìí nítorí wípé ẹ nífẹ̀ẹ́ orílẹ̀-èdè wa tí a pè ní Áfíríkà ni ẹ fi wá lónìí bó ni a ó sì ṣe àgbéga ohun tí Ọlọ́run fi jíǹkí wa pàápàá jùlọ nípa àwọn ewé egbò tí Ọlọ́run fún wa wípé ká fi máa ṣe ara wa ní dáadáa àjọṣepọ̀ wa kò ní bàjẹ́ a máa lọ síwájú ọwọ́ ní rẹ̀yìn a dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ olórí elétò wa náà Dáre Olúsan iṣẹ́ kìtìkìtì takuntakun lẹ́ ń ṣe tí a bá nírú ìyàpéjọba yìí kò ṣeé ṣe fún wa láti lè sọ ohun tí à ń sọ yìí kí ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ayé sì gbọ́ ohun tá à ń sọ a máa rí yín bá lórí ètò yìí.
ẹ ṣé bàbá
ẹ ṣé wo tí ẹ wá fún wa Olúwa wà pẹ̀lú wa.
àmín ẹ ṣé bàbá ojú òní ti yé bàjẹ́ òní bá yé ẹni pípé sọnù bí ò ṣe bí ọmọ agbèmí ṣe tó ń relé ìdárò lékèlékè mi ṣe tó ń relé ìkẹfun oníyàn ṣe ọlọ́bẹ̀ ṣe èyí tẹ́ bá fẹ́ jẹ́ ẹkú àìbínú bí mo ti máa ń sọ gbà pé àmọ́ ọ̀bẹ ní bẹ ṣìrán àtẹ́lẹsẹ̀ á sì bẹ̀nà wò ẹ bá dábọ̀ bọ̀ nìkan la ní débálẹ̀ mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ àwọn bàbá tó ń wá sójú òpó ètò yìí ẹ wò inú mi dùn ayọ̀ mi kú torí pé mo láwọn bàbá tó jẹ́ pé wọ́n tó mú yangàn àwọn bàbá tí wọ́n fẹ́ tẹ̀síwájú ilẹ̀ adúláwọ̀ ẹ ṣeun ojú òní tì yín ó dọjọ́ mi ó dọjọ́ re ẹ jẹ́ kẹ́ mọ fèyí ṣe lọ ó dìgbà ó dàbọ̀ ẹ pẹ́ fún wa lágbára Èdùmàrè nígbà tí wọ́n bá tún gbé yín wá ọ̀rọ̀ ẹ̀rí náà láàmọ́ rí láti jọ mọ́ sọ mo dúpẹ́ pẹ́ òkun ó dọjọ́ mi ó dọjọ́ re ẹ ṣeun bàbá ó dàbọ̀ ní ẹ ṣeun ẹ̀yin tí ń gbọ́ ní gbogbo àgbáńlá ayé adúpẹ́ tó fẹ́ jámọ́ fèyí dágbére kó lójú òpó ètò yìí ká sì mọ́ dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ àwọn tó wọlé àwọn tó bá wa ṣe àwọn tá a jọ ṣe tí gbogbo ẹ̀ tó fi dùn àwọn tá a jọ kó wọ́ọ̀rì wá sójú òpó ètò yìí mo dúpẹ́ pé òkú lọ́wọ́ gbogbo yín pátápátá ire lójú owó ń rí ire nílé ire lọ́dẹ̀ ire ní gbogbo ibi tí ẹ bá wà mo dúpẹ́ mo láyọ̀ inú mi sì dùn wípé a lórí ọ̀fẹ́ ṣùgbọ́n tó bá dágbére àwọn kan wà tán gbé àwọn iṣẹ́ pàtàkì kan rán wa tá a sì gbọ́dọ̀ jẹ́ ká tó máa dágbére kó lójú òpó ètò yìí ká tó mọ̀ sẹ́ pé ó dọjọ́ mi ó dọjọ́ rí àwọn kan ń ṣọjọ́ òbí àwọn kan ń ṣe ayẹyẹ ọjọ́ òbí wọ́n fẹ́ ká kí àwọn wọ́n sì fẹ́ ká fi àkókò yìí ká fi dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run fún ìgbé ayé títí àwọn náà àwọn náà ni wọ́n máa fi àsìkò yìí tí wọ́n máa fi dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run lórí ayé wọn, tí wọ́n máa sì máa fi àkókò wọn àti ìgbà wọn tí wọ́n máa fi lé Ọlọ́run lọ́wọ́. Gbogbo ẹni tí ń ṣe ọjọ́ ìbí pátápátá náà ni mo kí pé ẹ kú ayẹyẹ ọjọ́ ìbí. Àṣọdúnmọ́dún ní í ṣe àwọ̀ àṣọdúnmọ́dún, aṣọ́rò òmòrò ní í ṣe àwọ̀ àṣọ́rò òmòrò. Kókókó báyìí làrọ̀ ọ̀tá le. Gbogbo yín tẹ̀ ń ṣọjọ́ ìbí kẹ́ ẹ pẹ́ bí mo pẹ́ ṣe ń pẹ́, kẹ́ ẹ fi èrìgì ìjóbi o, kí Elédùà kó sì jọ nínú àánú rẹ̀ kó jẹ́ kẹ́ ẹ máa rẹ́mi lo ayé, kẹ́ ẹ rẹ́mi lo ayé, kẹ́ ẹ rẹ́mi ló gbà, kẹ́ ẹ sì rí ìgbàlù lórí ilẹ̀ ayé. Kọ́jọ́ yín àtàsìkò yín kó jẹ́ ìgbà ayọ̀. Mo bá yín yọ̀ o, a bá yín dúpẹ́ látòrí The African Portal. Gbọ̀n tí ń ṣọjọ́ ìbí, a bá yín yọ̀, a bá yín dúpẹ́ pátápátá. Wọ́n dẹ̀ sí láyẹyẹ kan tàbí méjì tẹ́ fẹ́ ṣe, tẹ́ fẹ́ ká bá yín polongo ẹ̀. Ẹ máa ń gbé bọ̀ lọ́dọ̀ wa, ẹnu kọ́dọ̀ wa ló dànù sí. Àwọn làwọn òkèlè Èdùmàrè tí ń ké karaka gbogbo àgbáńlá ayé. Àwọn òdíṣẹ́ méjì, àwòkọ́ ni wá ká máa ké náà níbi ẹyẹ ìbákà. Òun náà níṣẹ́ títí wa. Ẹ̀yin náà ni ẹ máa gbé wá sọ́dọ̀ títí ẹja máa fi tiwa ká máa fi gbé tiyín lárugẹ. Ẹja máa polówó ọjà yín, ẹja máa polówó ń tẹ́ ń ṣe, ẹja máa polówó ọjà tẹ́ gbé dání kí ìbùkún kó lè bá wọ orí ọjà yín. Ọ̀dọ̀ wa náà ni ẹ máa bọ̀, ẹ máa gbé bọ̀ lọ́dọ̀ wa kẹ́ wá polówó ọjà yín. To everyone joining us, I really appreciate your time on this broadcast this hour, and I celebrate everyone born on this special day. I celebrate every one of you, and I say, may the Lord bless you. May you have more years ahead to rejoice and to celebrate. I celebrate every one of you, and this is coming to you from our very own, from our studio in Nigeria, from Duduyemi Oreke. Duduyemi Oreke, give us this job and we're going to put it on the spotlight. She wants us to celebrate one of our supporters, one of the people that believe on what we are doing on the African Portal, one of the people that see the African Portal as home, one of the people that believe in what we are doing. This month is her birthday, and she wants us to put her on the spotlight to celebrate her from our studio here in Pictorial, South Africa. And not only the birthday celebration, there is also a retirement celebration. And that's give me opportunity to celebrate this great woman, celebration of God's mercy, grace, and faithfulness to our dear sister, Victoria Titilayo Olaleye, Vice Principal Administrator from Oyo State Teaching Service Commission. That is one of our very own. And that is going to happen in the month of September. That is on the 27th, Wednesday, 27th September 2023. And the dress code is white and purple. So all the roads lead to Community Secondary School, Pegba Oke Ogbere Idiosan. That is in Ibadan. Please be there. The number of people to call to reserve your seat, you can call 8081-630-59224. That is Olaleye Sojo, or 081-049-08074. That is Olaleye Yomi. Call them to reserve your seat. I celebrate you and we say congratulations for your retirement. Good life and God bless you. And also for your 68th birthday celebration. From the African Portal Radio here in Victoria, South Africa, we celebrate you. We wish you long life and prosperity. And at the same time, we have one of our very own in the studio that we're going to be putting on the spotlight as well. The husband said we should celebrate her in style. And we're going to celebrate her in style on the African Portal Radio TV International. It's a great sister, and tomorrow is her birthday, 17 September 2023. Tomorrow is going to be her birthday. So I'm inviting you to join me to celebrate this great woman of our time. Please show us some love and let us also celebrate her in style from our studio. And I celebrate you. I celebrate everything about you. Your husband said we must put you on the spotlight and celebrate you and wish you long life and prosperity. We wish you long life and prosperity. You will see your children to the 5th generation in the mighty name of Jesus. And you will always have a great celebration every day of your life. We celebrate you on the African Portal Radio TV International. We wish you long life and prosperity. Have a great celebration. Tomorrow is going to be a great time. But before tomorrow, Your husband said we must already celebrate you from here and be part of that great celebration from our studio here in Pretoria, South Africa. And that is why we are putting you on the spotlight right now, right here, for here in our studio here in Pretoria, South Africa, to celebrate you, to wish you long life and prosperity, and to pray for you that you will live long to see your children to the 5th generation. We celebrate you. We wish you long life and prosperity. And to everyone joining us, kindly join me to celebrate this great day with her. Celebrate her in style. Celebrate her in style. She deserves world-class celebration. Please join me to celebrate this great woman of our time. Celebrate her. Show her some love. By the grace of God, tomorrow is going to be a great time. We're going to celebrate her in style as well from our studio here in Pretoria, South Africa. We wish you long life and prosperity. You enjoy your day. Every day of your life will be the time to enjoy, and you will see more of these years in the land of the living. We celebrate you. We wish you long life and prosperity. Happy birthday to you from all of us on the African Portal. Happy birthday to you from all of us here in our studio in Pretoria, South Africa. Happy birthday to you from all our team across the globe. We celebrate you. We wish you long life and prosperity. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of the year. Tomorrow is going to be a great time, and we will continue celebrating you tomorrow as well in our studio here in Pretoria. That is our very own Mrs. Oyebanjo. Mrs. Oyebanjo, happy birthday to you from the African Portal Radio TV International. Coming to you from your sweetheart, Elder Victor Oyebanjo. Happy birthday to you, ma. We celebrate you. God bless you. Have a great time. Thank you, everyone, joining us. We really appreciate your time on the African Portal Radio. This is where we're going to be drawing the curtain for today. Please kindly keep watching it, keep sharing it, keep talking about it. We are your one-stop media house where everyone have a say. It's going to be a great time. And to everyone celebrating their birthday today or tomorrow or born in this month, let's give you something to enjoy yourself. And we will see you again by the grace of God. Same time, same place, next week, in the mighty name of Jesus. God bless everyone. It's goodbye from you. God bless you.
Olólùfẹ́ mi o.
Ìwọ lọ́kọ mi.